All right, so it looks like my YouTube stream is up now. What's up? What's up, YouTube? Let me just check and make sure I can see and give everybody a couple of minutes just to kind of get up in here. All right, so 1 minute here. Cool. Want to make sure we can see the comments and all that good stuff. My man Steve Boyard enjoying the books. Hey, did you make it through the last one that we talked about? Because that would be it's an amazing book, man. It's gonna change your life. We might talk about some of that a little bit more off of the stream, but yeah. All right, cool, man. We got Mr. Hull is back. That's what's up. Pleasure to see you again. All right, man. So let's just go ahead and get started. While we're starting off, I don't want to wait too long. Like I said, I always appreciate you guys being here on time. But do drop me a couple of comments and let me know kind of what you've been up to over the weekend. Anything that happened. Did you get some feedback? Was it good? Was it bad? Did you take some action? Did you make some phone calls? Did you submit some offers? Let me know, okay? All right. So, on that note, Nadir's live with us. What's up? What's up? Great to see you again, brother. I kind of wanted to start off with a couple of questions that I got via email. Now, dude, it's Monday. Happy Monday again. I've been busy as shit all day, so I really have not had the chance to kind of go through all of the emails and take a look at the questions. I basically just opened like the first 10 that were sent, and if we need to dive into some more, we absolutely can. I usually like to start off with something not wholesaling related. I didn't really think about this too much before our call today, so I'll just say happy Monday. I think for a lot of folks, there's this negative stigma around Mondays. Like your weekend ended, so I kind of get it. But at the same time, Monday is typically my most, and even though my schedule does vary a little bit, Monday is typically my most productive day. And that's not by accident. I tend to do that very much on purpose because I feel like there's momentum to everything. I always tell my students, you're never in a stagnant position. There's momentum to action and there's also momentum to inaction. So you're going to be moving one way or the other. So I typically try to do a lot of my big projects and take as much action as possible on Mondays because it kind of propels me through the week. Syndicators in the building. Good to see you. Wow. Nice to see you again. Shout out. I've been with us, 2-3 weeks almost, right? But again, back to that concept of building momentum. So all of these things, it's more like little pieces that stack on top of each other that really bring you to that moment of success or those moments of success, right? So what I would say is, I got a question here on short sales. Cool, we'll get to that in 1 second. I'm in the middle of this thought, so I'm going to finish this up. But there really is momentum. Kevin, how are you doing, brother? Good to see you. Again, building that momentum to take you through the week. And so one of the very first modules that I start up my students off in our program, and if you guys want, I believe that same segment I have on my YouTube channel, but it's talking about the importance of building momentum. So in this context, I'm talking about it in terms of the week. So you start your Monday with as much action and momentum as you possibly can, and then we ride through the week with that. But on a daily basis, I talk so much about the morning, your morning routine and having the miracle morning. And I learned this from an online mentor I had many years ago before I even started wholesaling. And then it really hit home for me when I read the book, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Now, as you guys know, I read hundreds of books. My number one is Reality Transurfing. I recommend that for you all. But one thing about transurfing is that it can literally take you, I would imagine, years and years and years to master. This is more like a journey that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, right? So if you just want to kind of fast things to make you make immediate change, I mean, obviously, I definitely recommend that book. But one of my top 5 has always been The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. The Miracle Morning, yeah, by Hal Elrod. And I've been through this book several times, and it basically just talks about the concept of building that momentum. And so the idea is when you start your mornings in a productive, empowering way, that will translate to the rest of your day, to give your day, the utmost productivity and efficiency and positivity, and you set your frame for the day. And the concept is when you have a good day, I know some of you heard me talk about this before, but you have a good day, it means you have a good week. You have a good week, you have a good month, you have a good month, you have a good year. So I'm just going to reiterate this one more time if you've heard it before. I'm not even going to apologize because I believe there is also value in repetition. But the idea is, the acronym is to do the savers every morning. Now, you can do this in as little as 6 minutes a day. My morning routine typically takes me anywhere from 1 hour to 1.5 hours. If that means you have to go to bed a little bit earlier or wake up a little bit earlier, it's absolutely worth it, I promise you. So the concept behind the acronym SAVERS is you start with silence, and that's just meditation. I typically do that anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. You can do complete silence, which I do sometimes, and sometimes I use guided meditation. So it could be a combination, or you can alternate between the two. Next is going to be your affirmations, or the way I talk about my program, affirmations, I find a little bit more valuable. To a degree, I very much believe in affirmations. If you think that's all it will take, then no, you got to add to that a little bit more, but I do still do them. Next is visualization. I find that even more powerful than affirmations. A lot of you guys have a vision board. That's kind of an idea popularized by The Secret. Personally, I do have one, but I have it on my computer. I use a mind mapping software. You can actually download it for free. That's called Xmind. And so it's where I can write out my goals and write them in the present tense, but I can also accompany them with visual cues, like with pictures, because that's just the way that our brain thinks and our brain operates. Everything is in pictures. So when I look at my goals and the things that I want to accomplish, I view the pictures, and I find it a lot easier to not only know where I'm going and set those goals, but also to manifest those. And I've even surprised myself with some of the shit that I put out and been like, all right, I'm going to do this, and how quickly they actually happened as a result of the visualization. Brenda's here. Hey, I got your email, and I thought you were just going to watch the replay, so I'm going to answer it for you, but nice to see you here live. Okay, so visualization. The next is exercise. We're still physical beings. You got to get your body moving. You got to get your heart pumping. You got to get in that flow. You got to feel good. You got to, change your energy. There are times where, people might even look at me like a lunatic. Even there are times where if I'm feeling like not energetic, I will go for a drive or something, and I will scream at the top of my lungs in my car just to get my body out there, just to feel good. But exercise in the morning is definitely a part of that momentum that'll take you through your day. The R stands for reading. Of course, I read every day. Some people say, Mike, I don't have time to read, or I don't have time, they don't have time, because you're thinking like you don't need to finish a book in a day. And this is again where we talk about, these small incremental changes. And so it's when you're actually doing these, let's say you only have 10 minutes a day, right? You read 10 pages in the morning. Well, it adds up very, very quickly, and you'll find that you can make it through a book, even a large book, in a very short amount of time. So that's the reading part. Yes, Kevin. And then the next the next S is scribing. So that basically means journaling. And the reason I really like this is I got this idea from Jim Rohn. Again, I talked about him on previous live streams. But basically, he had a quote that says, "A life worth living is a life worth recording." And so I always journal now. And while I find a lot of value in journaling in the moment, when I first started to practice, I was like, wow, this is cool. I could put my thoughts on paper, my goals on paper, and things like that. And it's just something on a tangible state where you're remembering your goals, which is great. But there's also something about just writing that just kind of makes things more real, or makes things happen like on a metaphysical or way that's like just hard to explain, right? But it absolutely works. But while I saw the actual tangible differences and the positivity and all the things really work in my favor when I first started journaling, I found it even more powerful now that I have like several years of this practice under my bed, under my belt rather, where I go back and I look at my journal from the previous year, and what I do is I read the same date. So when I write my journal, let's say today, I'll look at this same day in 2017 and see where I was at. And sometimes, we talked about last week, it's not just important to look at the summit, to look at your goals, the top of the mountain. It is important, but exclusively, I don't think it's exclusively important in the sense that look at the top, look at your goals where you want to be, but also look back at the bottom of the mountain. Look where you've come from. Look at all of the achievements that you've made, and all that good stuff. That really, really does help. So I would encourage you guys. It's something I really stress You know, it's funny. A lot of people are just like, hey, just get to the part where you find out where we find motivated sellers. Listen, I'm telling you, you got to start with this morning routine. And then we start with the morning routine from that aspect of the savers. And then I have my students dock on the offer as part of their morning routine. But when everything becomes habitual and you just do this every single time, it becomes that much easier. So we got some new cats on the feed. Trell, remember, I'm seeing some familiar names, so it's great to see you guys again. Welcome, welcome. Definitely hit me with your questions. Jimbo, you emailed me about 2 weeks ago. Still haven't answered your email. I apologize, man. It's not like I do these things on purpose. If you want to post it right here, I'd be happy to take a look. There's just times I do get a lot of emails. For those of you that hit me on Instagram, I didn't get to take a look at those yet. I got a lot of DMs recently. I do have some emails pulled up, so I'll start to jump into those. But here's one thing I even say to my students in my program, and again, I have a separate email inbox for them because those are my highest priorities. I look at my student emails before I talk to anybody else or check any other emails, including my offers. But one thing I do say, even in my intro, guys, part of this is also taking responsibility for your life. I'm not trying to put the responsibility off of me, but my thing is, look, I'm human. There's sometimes I might miss calls, I might miss things. So I don't take it personally. Just send it to me again. I'm not going to be like, oh, this asshole emailed me twice or 3 times. I'm just going to be like, hey, I missed it. Just make sure you hit me again. Or you can shoot me a message. Hey, Mike, I emailed you last week. Did you see it? No? Okay, here it is, just in case. Just wanted to follow up with you. And you guys should get into the habit of not just doing this with me, but doing it with everyone. I have a lot of students or people, you know, they ask for something and then the person doesn't reply. A lot of times it's common with my students when they're dealing with listed agents, and I'll say, hey, what'd they say? And they're like, I'm waiting on that person to hit me back. Listen, people get busy. Also, you cannot leave your faith, your lifestyle, your questions, the things that will impact you and even your kids and your future generations in somebody else's hands. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit pushy. Sometimes you have to be a bit of an asshole. Sometimes you have to be a little bit annoying, but you have to be the priority in your life. It is the old analogy of, you know, the plane with the oxygen mask come down. You got to take care of yourself first before you expect to help anyone else. So that means you really need to be the most important fucking person in your life, period. So, all right, we got some questions coming up here. I'm going to scroll through those in just a second. Brenda's on a call. I know Brenda's one of my students who's going to be an absolute all-star, a little bit newer to the program, but I see you and I see the actions you're taking. I have no doubt. I'm usually pretty good, as judgmental as it sounds, at knowing who's going to be successful when they come in. So I'm definitely batting on you, all right? So let me pull up your question first. I kind of don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I know I saw it. As I said, today was a Monday, and I keep it a little bit busy, right? So, all right, Brenda. Let's start off. So you have been working a probate list. Awesome. Using information in my ebook. Very good. Great choice. But you could not find information what to do in the case where the executor and the decedent address are the same. Does that mean anything? If the spouse or relative lives in the same property, would they want to sell? Would it be rude to ask? Okay, so here's how I would answer this question. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about probate. So this is where somebody passes away. It's unfortunate, and yes, it can be somewhat awkward of a position. Some people are not comfortable saying, hey, you know, someone just passed away. I'm an investor. I'm interested in doing, you know, in purchasing the property. But my challenge to you would be, look, this is a great sense of source of resources. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to make that call. So if not you getting that deal, it's going to be someone else. But the main thing is, like, the people who have inherited that house, they have to do something with it. Now, granted, some people might not want to sell, but in a lot of these cases, it's a very good source of motivated sellers. A lot of times, the people who inherit the house do not live in the area. They might even live, you know, several states away. They're still responsible for it. Now they're dealing with taxes, maintenance, all these different things. If the person passed away, they tend to be older people. Not always, but obviously, you know, statistical. And if they have kids, they're probably a little bit older, which means they probably have equity in the property. Now, Brenda's question is talking about the executor. So basically, this is also sometimes called the personal assistant. And I think the most basic way to describe this is the person who decides where shit goes and where things happen after the person passes away. So they will, you know, figure out all that person's debts, make sure the debtors are paid, and make sure the people who are supposed to be inheriting property or assets or money or whatever it is get that stuff, right? So that's the person that you're going to want to be communicating with in the event that someone does pass away. Now, again, just to reiterate the point, guys, I know it can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you're newer, but listen, we die. Like that's what happens in life. Everybody dies. At some point, I'm going to die. If somebody calls and asks my child, hey, do you want the house or is it something I could buy? I'm not going to be offended. Right? You're more than welcome to ask if you can buy my house when I'm dead and gone. Another point I'd like to make here is, look, nobody gets mad at the funeral director because they make a living off of people dying. You know, it's a little weird, maybe a little awkward. It's not something I would want to do, but it's a service that we need. It needs to get done. So, okay, so back to the question. There are times where, yes, they can have the same address. Now, there are two cases where that could happen. Number one, depending on where you pull your list, it could simply be an error on their part. They could have different addresses, or that person could be just picking up the mail at that address and chose not to implement or not to put their address. So, or it could just be accidental. That's possible. The other idea is, yes, they could still live in the same house. Maybe you have a child that lives in the same house. Maybe it's a spouse that lives in the same house. So my advice to you would be to send your direct mail anyway. Because here's the thing. When people send direct mail, let's say the Penny Saver sends you a coupon. Yes, they want to maximize that investment. They want to ensure that the most people possible that see that coupon will actually use it. So they want to have a compelling offer, but at the same time, they don't try and hit people and say, hey, what can I do to make sure that everyone, takes this offer? Back again, guys, we are simply playing a numbers game. There's no way to tell if it's going to, if they're going to be interested, if it's the right address or anything like that. But you just have to send it, which is why we want to be able to do these things in bulk. Which is why some people, yes, you can get lucky when you just do one mailer. But I always recommend we do at least 6 months of mailers. For some of you who it's not in your budget, that's why I make you qualify your list with the most possible filters to increase the conversion rate while simultaneously decreasing your expenditure. That's also why I have a lot of my students who are fairly new, maybe with limited dollars, to focus on a lot of those listed properties because it's very low-hanging fruit. While you can't always make the biggest spreads, and sometimes you can. You guys have seen my videos where I made 20K on listed properties, but a lot of times the listed stuff tend to be a little bit lower. But again, that's better because even if you only make 6-7 grand, if that's unexpected income that took you nothing in terms of money to generate, you can then take that and put it into your marketing. So, but here's the main piece of the question that I really want to get to that I think is important because it's a mindset thing, right? Which I feel like people don't put as much importance on it as you should. But it says, if the spouse or relative lives in the same property, would they want to sell? Would it be rude to ask? So 2 parts to this question. One I'm going to tackle says, if the spouse or relative live in the same property, would they want to sell? I have no idea. Actually, this kind of goes all together and would it be rude to ask? I couldn't tell you that, Brenda, and I think it's a good question, but I'll also put it to you like this on kind of a personal way, right? I have walked up to women as a single man, and I've just said, often with no expectations or even reciprocation, like literally as a compliment, hey, I really like your dress. And some women have said, wow, thank you so much. And we may have even had a conversation after that. Some women have said, thank you very much. And I've just kept it moving. And that was it. And then I've said that. And some women have been very offended. And it's like, why? I don't know. I don't know that person's situation. And I couldn't really tell you there's no overall like percentage wise of who's going to be offended and who's not. But I think the bigger question is, would it be rude to ask? Now, inevitably, some people, as in the example I just gave, will find it rude. And there's nothing you can do about that. But, for the people that do find it rude, you have to understand that, does that mean because a certain percentage of the population will find it rude, you should then not pursue what you're trying to do in your life because you might offend some people? So basically, you're essentially saying to me, this is going to sound like an asshole way, but I want you to think of it in this way, because what you're essentially going to be saying is, look, I'm going to disrail my goals and my financial goals and the things I want to do in my life because I might possibly offend someone. And like that's a huge problem, which is why in our program I talk so much about a lot of these psychological things. And it's not to kind of put blame or anything, because we're indoctrinated into society in a lot of ways to, be very empathetic and cognizant of people's feelings and stuff like that. But when it comes to the business side, you guys are attaching, you cannot take these things personally. You absolutely have to look at it in that sense. Like you can't, basically fuck up your business, for lack of a better word, because someone might be offended. That's like saying, all right, I won't get into all the different examples, but hopefully haters gonna hate. There you go, right? And it's not even hatred. Like some haters hate, and like hate is typically a bad thing. Hey, some people might find it rude that you want to buy their dead parents' house. That might not even be hating, but that's legit. They find it rude. That's okay. But you also need to understand there's another percentage of people that really do want to sell and really don't want to be burdened with that whole thing. And some of them are trying to pay for the funeral and deal with all these other issues that come up. Maybe the pain of the, the passing, or maybe they just don't want to be bothered with the house whatsoever. And so from that perspective, if you are worried about the subsegment of people that will be offended and ignore the people who really need your help, you're doing these people an absolute disservice. The ones who might feel that it's rude, they just be like, okay, it's rude, I'm going to hang up the phone. And then you don't impact their life any further. You don't, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter. But for those people that really needed you, if you quit because you're worried about the guys who you talk to for 5 seconds who don't want to hit you up, then you're really doing those people a disservice. And so I think that's the point of this question that I really would like to drive home, is that just you got to go for it. You got to go for it all. Again, be empathetic, but also be real. This is what you do. Hey, I'm an investor, and you could be, it's kind of at your discretion how much you want to go into it, but I do think you need to display some empathy, but don't be fake or disingenuous. You just say, hey, I'm an investor. I do purchase inherited homes. If you are interested at some point, I could help you out with the process. I do have connections with realtors and stuff, but I'm an investor, so I do buy directly, and then you can start the conversation from there. And if it goes in a great place, good, and if it doesn't, that's okay too. That's perfectly fine. All right. Greg is on the call again, man. This guy. Nate, what's up? We got some new folks joining. How are we doing? Aquana, hey, how are you? What was your niche when you first started? So one of the things I did, I like this question. I'm all over the place. Brenda, also, I know you have some other stuff. I ran through it very briefly. Let me see if anything kind of pertaining to the whole group. Because you're asking about like Texas contracts and stuff like that. I have that. I'll send you the latest version if you need it. And I'll talk to you about some of your other stuff offline. I'll send you an email there. Okay, so my niche when I first got started. So my first couple of deals that I did, I was a little bit spread all over the place, just trying to figure out what happened, which is why I recommend for you, like a lot of things I learned the hard way, because I feel like I was spread too thin. My mentor told me from the jump, he's like, you got to make offers. And there were some days I would make 5 offers, 10 offers, and then I'd go a week and not make another offer. And then I would, be like, oh, this doesn't work. I got to try something else. Then I got to try something else. So the first deal I did was a joint venture deal. That was essentially by calling other wholesalers in my area because I had no money to work with and say, hey, if I find you a buyer, will you split the deal with me? Someone said yes. I advertised it on every free resource possible. So that was Craigslist, at the time, Backpage, eBay Classifieds, and a bunch of those other sites that probably don't exist anymore. Some other good ones, if you guys want to use, biggerpockets.com is a great source. I've found many buyers there who have bought things from me. You do want to get the upgraded account. It probably costs you like, the 2 tiers, I think one is like $10 a month, one's like $30 a month, but basically it allows you to post in the marketplace. That's where you want to be posting your deals, and then you can connect with a lot of investors that way. So I would use the marketplace there. Another good site is myhousedeals.com. They're only in selected markets, but particularly if you're in if you're on the East West Coast or somewhere with a decent market, they'll probably be there for you. So that was the first thing, is just JV. Now, even to this day, most of my deals in terms of volume, I do a lot of JV deals. There's usually other parties involved. And part of that is just because there's not one and this is a point I want to drive home. It's something I talk to my students about. There is literally not one person in my life who doesn't know what I do. Like everybody that I meet or come across, this guy, They know exactly what it is that I do. So you got to just tell people, put your name out there. Even if you don't want to call yourself a wholesaler, hey, I'm looking to invest in properties. I'm interested in rehabbing. If you want to qualify yourself and say, hey, you know, I just got some money, or I just did this seminar, whatever, you could. I typically would not recommend that because you don't want to qualify yourself necessarily. Those people don't need to know. But basically, you just want to say, hey, I'm buying houses. I'm very interested in buying houses. I'm buying houses. So that's part of it. And then after that, once I built up some capital, then I started doing direct mail. Actually, prior to that, I did bandit signs, and I actually did get some deals from bandit signs. Nowadays, I don't do them just because the ROI, return on investment of my time, was not good for me, and I just don't really like doing that. Now, nowadays, there are other options. There's an option called simplecrew.com. You can check that. You can have people put your bandit signs up for you, and they'll take pictures and verify that they were there and show you. That might be an option for you. I've seen their website. It's not something I've done personally. I'm having some success that I'm very much happy with my direct mail. So I'm not doing that, but that might be an option for you. But also, like I said, you have to see what's good for you. You might like putting up bandit signs. It might be cool for you. It might work for you. So I'm not discouraging it, but I'm saying to a degree, you want to do kind of what you want to do because that's how you make your business sustainable. If you hate what you do, you're not going to do it with consistency. And that's the biggest thing that you need to do is operate with consistency, right? So after that, I did try direct mail, and I talk about a lot of different lists I use and stuff like that. I've gotten deals from code violations. My go-to list right now, probate lists, and then absentee owners who have recently evicted a tenant with more than 50% equity. I talk about that in previous videos and stuff like that. But also, you got to remember, you have to hit these people up consistently every month, at least for a minimum of 6 months. Now, in that time, if you're saying, hey, Mike, I can't wait 6 months, you know, to get a deal, that's cool. I get that. That probably won't be your first deal that you do. So remember, I have different campaigns. One might be in its first month, one might be in its third month, one in its 6 months. So all those are going on simultaneously. So it's not like I'm just waiting 6 months for a deal. But that said, if you are waiting for that, then what I would recommend you do is look into some of these listed deals. Now, I know some people say, hey, I don't like those, or there's no deals there, whatever. Yes, you do have to do some research and some target market research and really understand your market. Make sure the demand is there. Make sure there are a lot of properties, there are a lot of buyers, stuff like that. But if you do that, I can almost guarantee you that there are deals out there. I pull deals off the MLS every single month. Typically, they tend to be more on the side of distressed deals because they're fucked up. There are holes in them. There's mold growing in them. No bank is going to, you can't get an appraisal for them for these guys to give a mortgage. So typically it's going to go to cash buyers and investors. But that's what I'd recommend you do to get your paper stacked up a little bit so then you can move forward with direct mail, or you can do other things. You can buy into different franchises, or what I'm going to be doing, I haven't been doing, but I talked about it before, is going to be exploring some Facebook ads. And one thing I know about Facebook personally is that in order to figure out what works, you need to throw money at it. So you can't just do like $50 a day and think you're going to be good. So that's something where I'm going. When I have those results to share with the community, I'll be happy to do so. But one thing that a tenet of mine is basically I don't teach things that I have not proven to work in a replicatable, duplicatable, predictable way. So that's why that'll be coming from me. I'm hoping that I see those success features soon. But for now, what I do is the direct mail, and that's my niche, right? All right. Assignment of Eric, what's up, man? Good to see you. Good to see you, brother. You got an assignment of trust agreement. Is it okay if I do the assignment directly with the buyer outside of the title company, or should I get an attorney? So here's one thing, man. This is always a little bit weird, but a lot of times it depends on I've had a couple of different situations. So I've done it completely outside of any title company or buyer. In those cases, you do have to get the thing notarized. So you want to go get that assignment of beneficial interest and or the resignation of trustee notarized. Go to your bank, local notary, whatever. Now, I've also had times I've done that and then just never heard back from the buyer. So I'm assuming they either held it or maybe they flipped it without question. Now, there have been times where certain title companies, or the way they write up their policy, they might want further verification more than that. So there have been times where, let's say I've done just what I explained to you. I've signed it with a notary or whatever, and then given it to my end buyer. Now 3 months later, I've gotten a call that said, "Hey, Mike, I'm closing with an attorney, and they want to verify everything. Could you come in, or could you sign, X documents or whatever?" And then I've gone in and met with that buyer's attorney after the fact and signed, documents in their presence just to make sure. So some of it might depend on that. Let's see, your first time assigning the trust. So yeah, that's what I would start with, is really just a lot of it is also the comfort level of your buyer and what they're comfortable with, because the law on land trusts, at least in Florida, is very clear. So for us, there are a lot of things that title companies might ask for or sellers ask for. For example, we talked on the last stream about them wanting to see the trust, and that there's an actual statute saying, no, we don't have to legally show it to you. But again, if your end buyer is not comfortable with some of these things, it might just be helpful to just go in the presence of the title company and just sign it for them, just to make it a little bit easier. All right. Each month you change the letter or email the same letter. I have different things that I alternate, so I do have different pieces between letters and postcards. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to change it, but it's something I recommend. It's just like, think about your emails or some of the companies that email you. If Amazon sent you the same letter with the same deal every single day, at some point you might be like, hey, I've seen this, and you'll ignore it. So again, you don't necessarily have to, but I would recommend you change up the letter and or format or postcard, especially because certain things resonate with people. Also, certain things just kind of jump out at different people. I have some postcard pieces that are somewhat facetious in nature, because I'm trying to stand out from the competition, and I'm trying to, differentiate myself from every single yellow letter that's come through. So, yeah, I do change it up. I would recommend that. If you guys have questions, okay. So I wouldn't necessarily put out my exact pieces, but I have one letter that's basically, it's a little vile. It depends on if you want to use it. But if you guys know my marketing thing, my thing is always be a little bit different. So my thing, I have a postcard that I send out, and it is a picture of a hand like this with a latex glove on it. And it says, selling your house shouldn't be a pain in the ... And then it has my information. So yes, that's a little bit crass. That won't work for everyone. I don't send that for my probate stuff. I probably could, but I choose not to. It's a little bit of a more sensitive situation, so I don't send something that crass. But it's also something that might stand out, might give a little smirk on the face of someone, as opposed to the exact same fucking letter that they got from the last 8 investors that sent them the same exact letter from yellowletters.com. So it's just something to think about. The choice is completely yours. I found it to work for me and my business, and it resonates with me and things like that. And yeah, so that's your choice, but I would recommend switching it up just a bit. So some more folks on the line. What's up, guys? Good to see you. And I'm going to jump into, I've been neglecting the YouTube feed a little bit. My apologies, guys. Jumping back over here, and I got some other questions here. So give me 2 seconds. Let me see what we got going on, all right? All right, Brenda, good. I'm glad you found that helpful. It's going to be some insecurities creeping in. And, that's true. Like, listen, whether you're dealing with probate and it's a little bit uncomfortable, or the insecurities, or I got another question saying, Mike, I want to make my first offer, but I'm just nervous. You guys got to realize that's a very normal thing. Like, that's something that happens very, very often. And I would almost be concerned if you didn't feel like that way just when you were just getting started. But you just realize it's kind of a part of the game. And for every person that blows you off and treats you like shit, or curses you out, or says that you're insensitive, or says that, have some respect or something like that, I get it. It happens. You should apologize. Don't take it to heart, but say, hey, I'm very sorry if I offended you. It's not like I'm sorry for making the call, but you're sorry if it's offensive or anything like that. But, sorry, thrown back by some of the comments, which I'll address in a moment. But, yeah, it's just something that comes with the game. And when you do finally get to that person, who you really helped, and they tell you, wow, that was so smooth and it was just an easy transaction. I'm dealing with all these things. I just really appreciate having the stress gone from my life. Like, thank you so much for helping me out. That's the time where you're going to be like, shit, like, this is amazing. Okay. All right. The comment that threw me off is this family about please stop cursing. Hey, look, I don't want to offend you or your thing, but here's the thing. This is my channel. You could call it a PG-13 channel or whatever you want to do. But there are times the way that I speak and the way I dress and the way I make my content is not just for the sake of just, hey, cursing you guys out or something. But they're actually very much neurological. There's shit in your brain. If you listen to a Tony Robbins speech, this motherfucker curses. But part of it is because there's certain things that can kind of go over your head. And sometimes strong language does kind of jump out and pop and really drive things home, or at least make you remember them. And that's part of the reason I do, but also I just like to operate from a sense of authenticity. There is a time where, you know, I used to work in an office where I had to speak very correct. I had to have the tie. I had to do all these things. So I absolutely, that's part of the reason I'm in my business I'm in, and freedom. So again, if I offend anybody, this just might not be the shit for you, but I'm really just not going to change. I have a young daughter. I don't encourage, we don't listen to some of the rap songs I might listen to on my own with just, you know, cursing for the sake of it. But best believe my daughter's only 8 years old. We listen to Grant Cardone audiobooks. He uses like certain language, and I explain the difference to her, and I say, hey, it's okay, you know, when you're just very passionate about a subject or certain things come up in a certain way. And her and I have these conversations. You know, maybe it's not, I don't know, acceptable in other contexts. But in the context I'm trying to teach things, and the context and I'm coming from a place of authenticity, that's just where it is, man. If that's not acceptable for you and you're watching with children, you know, that's kind of your call. I can't even really say I apologize. That's your call. I'm not going to go into a rated R movie and then bitch about the fucking violence. It's just not what I'm going to do. So I just kind of put that out there. And maybe you might want to log on to the blogs and see some stuff there. But again, I can't change who I am because that's who I am in my core. So hopefully that answers that question. We got off the wholesaling a little bit. But so let's try and get back to that. But I guess I figured it was worth addressing. All right, I got a property under contract today. Please give me some advice. That's very not specific. So the first thing advice I'm gonna give you is anytime you ask for advice or you need something, be as specific as possible. Now, if I remember, this might be from an email that I got earlier. So let me just check on some of them I got pulled up. All right, no, this is not you because that was rental. Okay, this is Robert, but kind of a similar concept. So I'm gonna say. This person sent me an email. Robert, I don't know if you're on the call, but it said, made an offer, the first deal, and the house is vacant. Needs work on a major street or intersection. The comps are running 650 to 700. She's asking 550. What do you think? So what I would say here is this is not specific enough for me to tell you what I think. There was also another question I got, which I feel like I could tie into this. Guys, bear with me 1 second. I can't remember what it is, but I know it sounds familiar. One second. Okay, no, I can't. I don't see it here. And I don't remember the specifics, but I know it was on a similar topic. So let me just say, it's definitely not enough information. Oh, the other question, it was something like, do you treat properties different based on whether you are... Okay, here it is. Sorry. Kira. Sorry for the delay, guys. I knew this was kind of similar. Actually, you had a couple of questions for me, but this one part ties into this. Do you evaluate wholesale deals differently when the property will be a buy and hold versus the flip? Okay, I'm going to tie these two together for you. All right, so check it. The first part, that's not specific enough. That's not enough information. A lot of times, if you're really solid on those comps, the comps are running 650 to 700, cool, it sounds like you might have a deal. But what I find is a lot of the times when people send me these emails and I just kind of look at it, typically those are overstated. So you want to make sure your comps are legit and pretty straight, first of all. Again, I don't believe in putting a lot of emphasis on getting it perfect, but just be in the ballpark, right? But again, you got to give me a little bit more information than that. Now, there are two ways I like to address this personally. I always say comps, rehabs, repairs, stuff like that. It is important. Obviously, that's going without saying. But I feel like the average person, especially the average person that, I talk to, which tend to be a lot of new investors and wholesalers, put way too much emphasis on this. Typically, it is important, but it's secondary. So here's what I would give you on the primary. Robert, specifically, what you would have to do is you need to go back and run the wholesaling script by the seller. Now, if you guys don't have a copy of my wholesaling script, it's actually not on my website. It's not on my YouTube, but you can go to www.needmotivatedsellers.com. That's the only place I have it up right now. After you download the free ebook that gives you 41 ways to find motivated sellers fast as hell. I do have a webinar presentation. I highly recommend you watch it, but then at that point you can download the actual script, which I think one difference I have is like a lot of scripts just give you the words to say. I try to emphasize also how you should say it. I find your communication to be very important often, and we know this, guys. It's like it's traditional, any type of traditional communication research or anything tells us 7% of your communication is verbal. So much more of it is your body language and your intonation and things like that, your tonality. And so, yes, granted, you want to, if you were in front of the person, it would be a little bit different. But if you are on the phone, there's still ways to sub-communicate certain things. So first of all, I'm going to highly, highly recommend you guys go and download that script. That'll also be a part of several packages of scripts. Brenda, you asked me earlier also, you want to see some videos of some live talking to buyers and sellers. I'll absolutely do that for you guys. Now, Florida, every state's a little bit different. Like some states, only one party has to be, I guess, in agreement or whatever to record phone calls. I believe Florida's a two-party state. So I'm not going to probably post a bunch of that on YouTube. But I'm pretty sure if I can like blur the specifics and voices, I can probably get away with it. But also, that's something I will put in my membership area for either my students or folks that purchase the my scripts package and training about getting deals when that comes out, which will probably be sometime in late August because I'm going on vacation, baby. But after that, that's when I'll have that out for you. But back to the point. Sorry, guys, I do this from time to time. Yeah, so you need to really run the seller through those questions. Now, there's several questions. A big part of it is getting the seller talking as long as possible, right? So it's very important. So even information you already know, how many beds, how many baths, you can still, even if you know that information, you can still ask and let them talk about it. You want to get them in a place where they're comfortable talking to you. And then the main questions you need to get are, when dealing with the direct seller, one, what is the reason for selling? You need to have their motivation. It's the most important question you can ask. Number two is, what's the balance on a mortgage payment? How do you, how much money do you owe the bank, right? You have to know that to know if there's money in the deal. Number three is, what is the lowest that you will take for the property? Now, I have said to my students, one part of my program is I always want to give you feedback and criteria, particularly in the moment. So a lot of times I email them back and forth and say, listen, record the conversation. And again, I know what I just said, but we're not putting this in a public forum. But record the conversation and send it to me. I will listen to it and I will give you feedback. Now, one part on my script, when you guys download it, you'll see the question is, what is the lowest you will take for the property? And what happens is after that, not none of them, but a lot of students that struggle, that haven't done deals yet, they don't ask the question like that. And that's one of the biggest things I will give you is ask expectantly, ask with some expectancy. You expect them to give you an answer. You can communicate that, obviously be better with body language, but through your general demeanor and how you ask that question will forever most likely change how that interaction works out for you. There are times where people will feel compelled to give you an answer. Sometimes they'll say, well, you give me an answer first. If you ask the question correctly, they're less likely to do that, especially if you've demonstrated some of the things I recommend prior to that. They're less likely to do that. Remember, as people, we're conditioned to respond to authority. So if you ask in an authoritative way, they will answer the question in that way. But that's very, very important. And even when they say, you make me an offer first, which is the most common thing, you have to have, which I have on my script, a comeback. Don't be dumbfounded like, okay, well, let me look at it. You have to ask, well, I understand, you agree with them, don't get into this headbutting thing, but let me just ask you, I just want to make sure it's a win-win. I don't want to waste your time, don't want to waste my time. Make sure we're on the same page. If you want to say you have to talk to your partner or something like that, you can. But essentially, well, just give me a ballpark figure just to make sure we can, we're in the same ballpark, basically, right? So that's kind of the thing that I would say on that. The next piece is going into the other question is, do you evaluate wholesale deals differently when the property would be a buy and hold versus the flip? No, absolutely not. I don't. Now, if I backpedal a little bit, I'll say, sure, I can tell if a deal is better suited to be a fix and flip or a hold, and that might depend on how I maybe advertise it or the people I call maybe before I do my e-blast. But my thing is, look, a lot of you guys, and again, there are exceptions to everything, and being a little bit more experienced, I'll make certain exceptions differently. But for the majority of people, tend to be a little bit newer to the game on this stuff. You have fucking one-itis on these properties, man. There are some properties where you just want to talk about, what about this one deal, this one deal, this one deal? And it's like, dude, you need to be filling your pipeline with hundreds of deals. You're not trying to make a wholesale deal again. You are only trying to identify the ones that currently exist. And the only way you can do that is through volume. So, and also when you're doing this, like, should you be evaluating it? No, you should be getting the lowest price you can, putting it to market, and letting your buyers and your market tell you what they would be willing to pay. What they do with it after the fact is none of your fucking business. You might have something where they say, I want to flip it. And then they might find out, hey, this is a great neighborhood, I think I might hold it. That's their discretion. They own it at that point. You want to give them all of the relevant details and information and give them the option to buy it. That's your job as a wholesaler. And I'm telling you, I do try and go above and beyond for my buyers for sure. And to a degree, I can break things down to a degree. But my main purpose is to only give them the option to do so. That's another point I wanted to make with Robert's original question about, just giving the number. It's also, if a motivated seller, let's say it's a property that was inherited, right? Now, let's say the property's worth $100,000. And you're like, hey, let me do my ARV and my repairs and blah, 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 blah. And I come up with the property's worth $70,000. My max offer is $70,000. So I'm going to call this person and make $70,000. Well, what if you ran them through the script first, like I recommend, and you say, hey, what's the lowest you'll take for this property? You could, and then there's follow-up question, I'm interested, but I'm an investor, I'm buying for profit, so I want to make a win-win, blah, blah, blah. I'll pay cash, I will close quickly. What's the lowest price you're willing to accept? And then shut up. Just shut up. Stop talking. Shut the fuck up. Be quiet. Then what if that person says, well, I don't really know, blah, 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 to give you that whole thing. And then you're like, no, I just want to make sure we're in the same ballpark. What's the lowest you'd accept? And then they say $50,000. Well, now that's some intel you didn't have before. And if you had thrown them an offer of $75,000, then you would essentially have cut yourself out of $25,000. Which if you want to do, that's fine. But remember, we're not trying to pressure this person to take $50,000. If they tell you $50,000, that's what they're okay with accepting. So you're not ripping anybody off. That's what they told you is in their comfort zone, and that's cool. So that's the shit that you should offer. That's the shit that's good. So that's, hopefully that answers your question. Alright. Alright. Let's see who's over here. Alright, Mr. Fryer got his, received my vacant cash buyer list. Awesome service. Drove today and there were some vacants. Awesome. Glad to hear. Can you provide advice on how I should market to vacant owners? I was thinking postcards or yellow letters. Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. Go to the property appraiser site, especially if you're doing this on your own, if you haven't outsourced it or have a VA or something. Just go to the property appraiser site. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just write the name of your county. So I'm in Palm Beach County. I would type in Palm Beach County property appraiser. Sometimes it might say tax assessor, same shit. Then you just click on it. And then you look at, typically there'll be, obviously the address you're looking up, and then there'll be the owner's address. And then just use direct mail. Just send them a piece of mail. You can do postcards or yellow letters. I start my campaigns off with yellow letters, and as they go, I do some mixing up. Part of it is just to keep the cost lower, but I do some postcards in there, but I typically send the yellow letter first, and that first letter is The point of it is to pique curiosity. So it's not like, hey, and give all the details. I know all this shit about you. It's basically, hey, my name is Mike. I'm an investor. I want to buy your house. Here's my phone number. And that's it. And a lot of people will be, piqued by that, this curiosity factor to at least call you. Now, a lot of those don't necessarily mean deals, but hopefully you'll get a call. It's something I said on the last call that I kind of want to reiterate, but it's essentially when we're sending mail, the idea is not for the mail to make the deal or sell your services or sell you as an investor. It's only to get a phone call back, or if you have a website, to get them to put their information in so you can call them back. This is another reason why I kind of differentiate myself from other investors and wholesalers who talk about doing skip tracing. A little bit controversial, but I don't do it. I have, but it's been rare, but I do it in rare cases because I think a lot of people find that, hey, once I have the phone number, I got the deal. Skip tracing, I got it, I got the deal. So my point is, skip tracing, it can add up. You can spend, $10 or more per name. You send it out. Because we no longer have landlines and stuff like that, the information you get will not always be accurate. Probably half of the time it won't be. And then when you get the information, you finally get the number, you feel like, yes, I got it. And let's say it's the right number, you call them, and then they're like, nope, not interested. And then to me, that's kind of a waste of time. Instead, they're basically the same thing, direct mail and skip tracing. It's just that skip tracing, you're both playing the numbers game. It's just with direct mail, it costs cents. It costs a couple of cents to send a letter. With skip tracing, it costs dollars, costs several dollars. So I just try to keep my costs low and increase my conversion rate. Just by skip tracing does not mean that you're going to get a higher conversion rate. Anyone who taught you that is probably trying to sell you on some type of skip tracing service, in my personal experience. Should you use a Google Voice number, or what do you suggest? Yeah, I use Google Voice and I recommend it. I think it's a great service. It's also cool because, not only is it free, but you get to, you can type your text messages and stuff like that on your desktop, on your computer, which I find very helpful. And when you get voicemails, they'll transcribe them to you and put it in the, they'll transcribe it and put it to you in the, as a text. Skip tracing costs like 40 cents though. It depends. I'm not aware of any reputable skip tracing service that costs 40 cents. If you pay 40 cents and you have success with it, that's awesome. You should let me know. We could do some skip tracing. You could change my mind. I'm always open to learning. I'll never be that guy that just like, I'm right all the time. In my experience, and I've used a couple of the different services, I have not had those results and had anything reliable or had anything where it felt where the results were better to me. And I'm very much data driven in the sense that I track fucking everything. Even sites like Spokio, stuff that you can pay for on a monthly service, which are, not necessarily like the highest end skip tracing services, but a lot of those numbers and stuff that came back were just not of value for me. So if you have a different site, people always come up with new stuff. I'd be happy to learn, and that'd be great. You should partner with them if they really work and let other investors know that's a niche that you could carve for yourself. That has just not been my experience personally. So yeah, let's see. Mike, not sure if you saw my question, but wanted to know what to do with earnest money with realtors. I try to answer this very, very quickly. We got 2 minutes left, and I know the Instagram feed shuts off instantly. I want to remind you guys that thank you for being here. Of course, as always, tomorrow I am going to be back here at 7 p.m. I'll be back here 7 p.m. to answer your questions. This will be my last live of the week, and also until further notice. So please, if you have questions or you're dealing with something, then absolutely message me, email me, mike@wholesalemike.com. So I'm looking at some of the comments, trying to get through them real quick. You spent $250 skip trades at Rescript and it was pretty good. That's cool. I don't know what pretty good means. For me, I need to know when I say something is good, I say, hey, I spent $1,000 on this campaign over this amount of time and I made $12,000 as a result. So like that's good to me. If you did 250 skip trades and you got a deal, that's awesome. Also, I want to know that it's not a fluke. It's not an outlier. It's not a one-time thing. So for me, all of my shit is replicatable. Like I never have to know, can I make a deal? Will this certain action be a deal per month? I know that I make deals. If when I want a deal, I know how to make it. I know I'll have a deal this month. So I have to make sure these things are not random and just chance, if that makes sense. All right, so be here with me tomorrow. That'd be awesome. 7 o'clock, I'll be here. If I get to this real quick, what to do about earnest money with realtors. This is actually something where Please join me tomorrow. I'll write a note right now where I'll start the call with this, because I really like this question, and I know I'm not going to be able to answer it in the next 2 minutes. I'll try to look over some of the other questions, guys. I know I didn't get to a lot of them today. But the one thing about earnest money realtors, I would say, is for the most part, there are exceptions to every rule. Sometimes, and if you got it like that and you can put it up and you have a inspection period and you just want them off your back, then go ahead. If you're within your inspection period and you cancel and your contract is done properly, and their contracts are different. Like our earnest money deposit, and it's standard. It's the default in our inspection period here in Florida. A lot of states are like that, California, Texas. But there's some states like Virginia where you have to spell it out a little bit better, that how you can cancel your contract. Please just be here tomorrow at 7. I really can't do the whole thing now. But that's the main thing. Now, if you don't have it, I do have a video on YouTube that talks about earnest money and proof of funds specifically. But a lot of it is just, if you don't want to, I don't necessarily recommend you put up the earnest money until you have an end buyer. This is not popular amongst realtors, especially because technically you are bound by your contract. Like, that is a legally binding contract. If you say you're going to put it up in a day or two, yes, you're supposed to do that. I typically don't, to the contrary, recommend you do that until you find an end buyer. We can go into the specifics of that and how it works in the real world. But that's just my recommendation. And then a big part of that is kind of stalling and delaying just to get a feed on your market and make sure you have someone to buy it. Now, that's why it's so important from the time you make initial contact with the listing agent. You can't just come off as some regular Joe Schmo in the beginning and then expect special treatment towards the end when they're asking for stuff. So that's why you do need to communicate in a way that says, hey, I am an experienced investor. Hey, I will make this deal happen, but hey, get off my back for a little bit while I do so. And then from there are different ways to kind of delay. You can talk about, maybe just kind of stall for a little bit. Then the next day, oh, okay, I just want to check it out first just to make sure. Hopefully that's not a problem. Oh, my partner just wants to check it out. Oh, my partner's putting up the money. Oh, my partner didn't put up the money. Oh man, I don't know what happened. Let me touch base with him, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that might be a little sketchy for some of you, but after you do, here's the funny thing. After you do your first deal, you're not going to have a problem coming up with $1,000 earnest money deposit. So really, I'm not saying that's a long-term solution. You don't have to always do that, but it's typically what a lot of my students will do, or I don't know. It's just the way it works in the real world. Which I just know I'm gonna get a shitload of flack on this, which is why I'll address it in some deeper context tomorrow. So if you guys could join me here tomorrow, that would be great, and then I'll address that in some more detail. But that's kind of the tip of the iceberg and how it's going to work for absolutely, for the majority of people. And then there are ways you can explain it. There are ways you can change it and have excuses. And there are ways to do, an initial deposit, and then you can write in an additional deposit after inspection period and all that good stuff. But we are unfortunately out of time, folks. So I do want to thank you all for being here. And I promise I'll write a note to kind of start the call off with this tomorrow, because it's a good question and a lot of people get stuck on. And then it can actually go off into several other points and tangents and stuff like that I feel would be helpful to the community and everyone here. So thank you all for being here. Once again, I'm going to put the replay up here, and I'll be back 7 p.m. tomorrow. If you want me to answer your question, email me, mike@wholesalingwithmike.com. Tomorrow is our last digs at this. So take some action tonight, so tomorrow you can tell me what you did and what your feedback was, or at least, tomorrow during the day, so then I can give you some feedback on that. All right. So, thank you guys very much. I will holler at you tomorrow. Peace. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Remember how to end this. Cool. And shut down my YouTube feed. Thank you all. Thank you all so much.